Doors open if you don't like it. That's what Sarah said to me. Right there in the parking lot of that wine bar in Richmond. She just looked at me, this dismissive half-smile on her face, like my feelings were a minor inconvenience, like I was being utterly ridiculous for daring to expect anything different. Then she got in her car and drove off, leaving me standing there, keys in hand, watching her taillights disappear into the Friday night. And in that moment, something inside me just snapped. Not in anger, but with this chilling clarity, like waking up from a dream I didn't even know I was having. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a fight. It was permission. Permission to leave. Permission to acknowledge that I was optional. And always had been. My name is James, I'm 38, and up until that night, I honestly thought my marriage to Sarah was solid. Not perfect, sure, but solid enough. We'd been together for 9 years, married for 6. Our routine was simple, every other week, a dinner date, just the two of us. No phones, no work talk. It was our promise to each other, a commitment to reconnect when life got chaotic. That particular Friday was supposed to be special. Sarah had picked the place, a wine bar downtown she'd been raving about, a spot her coworkers loved. I remember driving there, feeling a flicker of optimism. Maybe this was her way of putting effort back into us, because lately, it felt like I was the only one trying. Her car was already in the lot when I pulled in. I found her at the bar, chatting with the bartender, laughing. This open, animated laugh that actually made me smile because I hadn't seen her that relaxed in months. She waved me over, and for a fleeting moment, everything felt normal. Just a regular couple, a regular date night. We settled into a table by the window, ordered a bottle of red, and for about 15 minutes, it was good. It was like it used to be. She told me about her week, some drama with a project manager. I listened, asked questions, felt a hopeful warmth spreading through me. Maybe, just maybe, we were getting back to something good. Then she saw him. This guy at the bar, mid-30s, dressed in business casual. Her whole energy shifted. My stomach dropped before I even knew why. She didn't say anything at first, just straightened up, tucked her hair behind her ear. It was a gesture I remembered from when we were dating, a tell. A signal she wanted to look good for someone. I watched her eyes track him as he moved from the bar to a booth. She pulled out her phone, started typing, a little smile playing on her lips that was definitely not for me. I asked what was funny. Nothing, just a message from my sister, she mumbled, angling the screen away. That was the first real flutter of something being wrong. Then he looked over. Caught Sarah's eye. Gave her this casual wave like they knew each other. Instead of introducing me, instead of explaining, she waved back, turning her entire body towards him. Literally. My shoulder was to her back. I might as well have been sitting alone. I tried to pull her back. Made a comment about the wine, asked if she wanted to split the charcuterie board. Normal date stuff. She just said, sure, without even looking at me, or the menu. Her focus was gone. I saw her checking her phone every few seconds, like she was waiting for something. And then he started walking towards us. This weird tension seized my chest. I knew, somehow, I was about to watch something I didn't want to see. When he reached our table, Sarah's face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe longer. Oh my God, Michael, she gushed, I didn't know you came here. He said something about it being his favorite spot after work, and they just started talking. Like I wasn't even there. Like I was a coat draped over the back of the chair. I sat there, holding my wine glass, wondering if I should say something. Introduce myself. Assert my presence. But neither of them acknowledged me. The longer it went on, the more invisible I felt. Michael was leaning on our table, one hand on the edge, casually invading the space we'd carved out for our date. And Sarah was laughing at everything he said. That high-pitched, genuine laugh she used to save for me. I realized, with a sickening jolt, I couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that at anything I'd said. I tried one more time. Made a joke about the menu's artisanal selections. Sarah barely glanced at me before turning back to Michael, asking if he was still doing consulting or if he'd finally made the jump to full-time. That's when I understood. I wasn't part of this moment. I was just there. Michael stayed for what felt like 10 minutes, but was probably closer to 5. Not once did Sarah try to include me. Not once did she acknowledge that this was supposed to be our date. When he finally said he should get back to his table, she told him they should catch up soon, like, really soon, with an emphasis that left no doubt. The second he was gone, the energy at our table died. Sarah was still smiling, still riding whatever high that interaction gave her. I just sat there, looking at her, really looking, and seeing someone I wasn't sure I recognized anymore. Who was that? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual, non-confrontational. She said he was just someone she knew from a few years back. Mutual friends. No big deal. But it felt rehearsed, like she was protecting something. I pushed, "Did you two ever date?" She rolled her eyes, hard, and snapped, "Relax." The word landed wrong. It wasn't about calming me down. It was about shutting me down, making me feel like my discomfort was an inconvenience to her. We sat in silence. I tried to reset. Tried to salvage our night. I asked about her week again, and she gave me short, distracted answers, checking her phone every 30 seconds. I felt like I was performing a monologue to an empty room. I put my fork down. "Sarah, are we good?" She looked at me like I'd just asked the dumbest question in the world. "We're fine, James. You're overthinking." But her tone had this edge, this frustration that I was interrupting whatever fantasy she was living in her head. I didn't say anything else. Just watched her finish her wine and scroll through her phone. I thought about all the times in the past year I'd felt this way, like I was competing for her attention and losing to something I couldn't even name. The waiter came by. "Dessert?" Sarah said no, without asking me. Said she was tired, wanted to head home. I just nodded, paid the check, leaving a bigger tip than usual because I felt bad the waiter had to witness, whatever that was. We walked to the parking lot in silence. She was already texting someone. Probably Michael. This heaviness settled in my chest. We'd driven separately tonight, her from work, me from a site visit. Before she got in her car, she turned to me. "You know, if you're going to be weird about me talking to people, maybe you should just stay home." I stood there, trying to process it. How had the evening become my fault? I told her I wasn't being weird, I just wanted to spend time with us, like we'd planned. She laughed. Not a kind laugh. A dismissive exhale. And then she said it, "Doors open if you don't like it." I drove home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, not from anger, but from that strange, sharp clarity. The 20-minute drive felt like hours. My mind replayed every dismissive glance, every time she'd chosen her phone over me, every laugh she'd given Michael that she'd been withholding from me. Sarah's car was already in the driveway when I pulled up. I sat in mine for a few minutes, trying to figure out what to do with this certainty that something fundamental had just broken. Something that couldn't be fixed with a conversation or an apology. I walked inside. She was on the couch, still in her jacket, phone in hand. She didn't look up. Just scrolled, like I was a roommate coming home late, not her husband of 6 years. I poured myself a glass of water, waiting for her to say something, to acknowledge what happened. But she just sat there, in her bubble of complete indifference. Standing there, watching her, I started noticing things I'd been ignoring for months. The way she smiled at her phone. The way she angled it away when I walked by. The way she seemed more alive when she was texting than when she was talking to me. My phone buzzed around 11. A text from her, even though we were in the same house. It read, "You embarrassed me tonight." I stared at it, trying to understand how she'd flipped the script so completely. How I'd gone from being ignored to being the problem. Another text, a minute later, "You always overreact when I talk to people. It's exhausting." I didn't respond. Anything I said would just get twisted into proof that I was the unreasonable one. I went upstairs, got ready for bed, and lay there, staring at the ceiling. She stayed downstairs for another hour. I could hear her laughing at something on her phone. That same laugh she'd given Michael. And I realized this feeling of being secondary in my own marriage wasn't new. I'd just been ignoring it. Because acknowledging it meant I'd have to do something about it. She came to bed around midnight. Didn't say goodnight. Just turned away and fell asleep within minutes, like nothing was wrong. I lay there, finally understanding, to her, nothing was wrong. This was normal for her. This was how she saw us. I didn't sleep much. Spent most of the night thinking about the past year. All the times she'd made plans without asking me. All the conversations where she'd checked out. All the moments where I'd felt like I was chasing her attention, never quite catching it. I'd been making excuses. Telling myself she was stressed with work. Telling myself every couple went through phases. Telling myself it would get better if I just tried harder. Around 5 in the morning, I got up. Went to the spare room where we kept our luggage. Started packing a bag. Quietly, so I wouldn't wake her, but also not really caring if I did. My laptop, important documents, my grandfather's watch. As I packed, I realized I wasn't packing for a trip. I was packing to leave. Actually leave. And the thought didn't scare me the way I expected it to. I went back to our bedroom, took off my wedding ring, and set it on my nightstand next to a book I'd never finish. I looked at Sarah, sleeping peacefully. And I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just this calm acceptance that I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't write a note, didn't leave an explanation. What was there to say that hadn't already been said in that parking lot when she told me the door was open? I grabbed my bag, my keys, my phone charger, and walked out of the house we bought together 3 years ago, the house that was supposed to be our forever home. I felt lighter with every step toward my car. I drove to my brother Noah's place across town, showed up at 6 in the morning. He opened the door in sweatpants, looking confused, until he saw my face and the bag in my hand. He just stepped aside, let me in without a word. Over coffee, I told him everything. The bar, Michael, the texts, the ring on the nightstand. He didn't try to talk me out of it, or tell me I was overreacting. He just listened, asked a few questions, then said I could stay as long as I needed. I called my office around 8, told them I was taking a personal week. Then I called a lawyer Noah recommended, a woman named Ms. Hayes. She had a reputation for being straightforward and efficient. I got an appointment for that afternoon, walked into her office with my wedding ring in my pocket like some kind of evidence, and laid out the situation in about 10 minutes. She asked if there was infidelity. I said, I didn't know. Didn't really care. I just wanted out. She nodded, like she'd heard that exact sentence 100 times. We talked about assets, the house, the accounts. She told me the first step was to separate everything financial, protect myself before Sarah realized what was happening and tried to lock me out. She was matter-of-fact about it. No judgment, just strategic advice. I appreciated that more than I could express. I spent the rest of that day changing passwords, moving money from our joint account into a new personal one, documenting everything I could think of. It felt efficient, mechanical. Like I was closing a business deal, not ending my marriage. Sarah called me around noon. 3 missed calls back to back, then a voicemail that said, "Where are you? Your car is gone." Her tone was more annoyed than worried, like I'd inconvenienced her by disappearing. I didn't call back, didn't text. Just kept working through my list of things that needed to be handled. Another call came at 2, then one at 4. By 6, she was texting, "This is childish. James, call me back." I looked at that message and felt nothing. No guilt, no urge to explain. She told me the door was open. I walked through it, exactly like she suggested. Noah came home from work and found me on his couch with my laptop, surrounded by papers. He asked if I was okay. I told him I was better than I'd been in months. Which was true. Even though everything was falling apart, it was falling apart in a direction I controlled. After Sarah's 20th call that evening, after she'd left voicemail after voicemail, oscillating between confusion and anger, I blocked her number. Not out of spite, but because I needed silence. Needed space to think without her voice in my head telling me I was overreacting or being dramatic. I slept better that night on Noah's couch than I had in my own bed in years. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like I'd made the first real decision for myself in a long time. Ms. Hayes called me Saturday afternoon, said the paperwork was ready. Asked if I was sure. I said yes, without hesitating. She told me she'd have everything filed by Monday. I spent the weekend at Noah's. Didn't go back to the house, didn't respond to any attempt Sarah made to reach me through mutual friends. I could feel the weight of 9 years starting to lift off my shoulders. She told me the door was open. I walked through it. Now she was learning what it felt. Like when someone actually took her literally. The first week after I left felt like I'd been holding my breath underwater for years and finally came up for air. I stayed at Noah's, set up a makeshift office in his spare room, worked remotely, and ignored the flood of messages that kept coming through different channels because Sarah had figured out I'd blocked her number. Each attempt followed the same pattern: guilt first, then nostalgia, then anger when none of it worked. One email said, "I can't believe you're throwing away 9 years over nothing." I deleted it without finishing. She'd already shown me exactly how much those 9 years meant to her in that wine bar, when she couldn't spare me 5 minutes of genuine attention. Another message came through a mutual friend, one of those "hey man, just checking in" texts that really meant Sarah had sent someone to check if I was wavering. I told the friend I was fine and asked them not to get involved, that this was between me and Sarah. Ms. Hayes called me on day 10 to say the papers were filed and Sarah had been served. She mentioned Sarah's reaction had been dramatic. Lots of questions about why I didn't try counseling or give her a chance to fix things. I told Ms. Hayes that the chance to fix things was every day of our marriage, before she told me the door was open. The next wave of messages shifted tactics completely. Suddenly, she was reflective and apologetic, saying she understood now. Saying she'd been taking me for granted. Saying she didn't realize how much I meant to her until I was gone. Saying we could work on it if I just came home and talked to her. I read those messages once and recognized them for what they were: not genuine change, but strategy. Words designed to get me back into a position where I could be managed and controlled. I didn't respond to any of it. Just forwarded everything to Ms. Hayes like she told me to, and kept living my life in this new, quiet way that felt strange, but good. Noah asked me one night over takeout pizza if I missed her. I had to really think about it. I realized I didn't miss her. I missed the idea of what I thought we were. But that version had never actually existed except in my head. I'd been in love with potential, with the person I hoped she'd become, not the person she actually was. Work kept me busy. I had a commercial property deal closing that needed attention, and I threw myself into it, partly as a distraction, but mostly because I could. Because nobody was making me feel guilty for focusing on my career or staying late to review contracts. Around week 3, Sarah's mother called me. That surprised me because we'd always gotten along, and I expected her to automatically take her daughter's side. She said Sarah had given her version of events, that I'd abandoned her without explanation, left her confused and hurt. But she also said she'd been married long enough to know there were always 2 sides, and she wanted to hear mine. I gave her the short version: the bar, Michael, the dismissal, the door comment. There was this long pause before she said, "That sounds like Sarah," in a tone that was sad but not surprised, like she'd been waiting for this conversation for years. She told me she'd tried to talk to her daughter about how she treated people, how she had this way of making everyone around her feel secondary, how she'd done the same thing in past relationships. She said she was sorry I'd been on the receiving end of it. That conversation did something to me. It validated that I wasn't crazy or oversensitive. Other people had seen what I'd been experiencing. The social fallout started slowly, then accelerated. Friends we'd shared began reaching out, asking what happened. I kept my answers simple, said we wanted different things, and left it at that. But Sarah apparently wasn't being as diplomatic. I heard through Noah that she'd been telling people I'd had some kind of breakdown, that I'd left over a minor argument at dinner, that she was devastated and trying to get me help. The story was designed to make her look like the victim and me look unstable. Some people believed it, the ones who only knew us casually. But the closer friends, the ones who'd seen us together over the years, they started asking more questions. And Sarah's story began falling apart under scrutiny. One of her best friends from college called me a month in. Said she'd watched Sarah's social media become this performance of sadness, posts about healing and growth and finding herself that felt hollow. She admitted she'd never seen Sarah actually fight for the marriage, just fight to control the narrative around why it ended. By week 5, Sarah requested a meeting through Ms. Hayes. Said she wanted closure, wanted to understand. My lawyer advised against it, but I agreed because I wanted it done completely. Wanted to close this chapter without any lingering what-ifs. We met at a coffee shop near downtown, neutral territory, midday on a Wednesday. She looked tired in a way that makeup couldn't hide, like she hadn't been sleeping well. She started talking before I even sat down. Said she'd had time to think. Said she realized what she'd done wrong. Said she understood now that she'd been taking me for granted. She said all the things I might have wanted to hear 2 months ago. I let her finish. Let her say her piece. Then I said, "Sarah, you told me the door was open. I walked through it. That's all that happened here." She got frustrated. Said I was being cold. Said I wasn't even trying. Said I owed her more than this after 9 years. I realized in that moment she wanted me to fight for her. To prove she mattered by chasing her, by begging her to take me back. I was done playing that game. She asked what she was supposed to do now. I told her she was supposed to sign the papers and move on. Same as me. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Which maybe I was to her. Maybe I'd always been. I left that coffee shop, got in my car, and drove back to Noah's without looking in the rearview mirror. I felt nothing but relief that it was finally over. The divorce finalized 3 months after I'd left, quick and clean, because we didn't have kids, and she didn't want to fight once she realized I wasn't coming back. That there was no amount of tears or apologies that would change my mind. I moved into my own apartment downtown. 1 bedroom with big windows that let in morning light, hardwood floors, and space that was entirely mine. I built a life that didn't require me to compete for attention or apologize for existing. I started going to the gym again, something I'd stopped doing because Sarah always made comments about how long I was gone. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, guys from college who'd slowly faded from my life because Sarah never wanted to do couple things with them. I took a weekend trip to the mountains by myself, something I'd wanted to do for years, but she'd always shot down because she didn't like hiking. Sarah moved on, too, from what I heard. Started dating someone new within a few months. I hoped for her sake she treated him better than she'd treated me. But I didn't think about it much. She'd wanted me to see life without her attention. Wanted to make me feel small enough that I'd be grateful for whatever scrap she threw my way. But instead, I let her see life without my presence. Without someone willing to bend and accommodate and disappear to make room for her ego. Memory wasn't a reason to return to a place where I'd been diminished. I'd learned that the hard way. 6 months after I left, I ran into her at a grocery store, just a random Tuesday afternoon. She tried to start a conversation, asked how I was doing. I kept it brief, polite, but distant, and walked away. I saw her watching me leave. And I knew she finally understood. I wasn't coming back. The door she told me was open had closed behind me permanently. She wanted me to see life without her attention. I let her see life without my presence. What do you think? Did I do the right thing by walking away?